Okay, I know I'm going to tick off some people here, but it's a Friday. Let's have some fun. Florida State should forfeit this game. You know they should. They should go ahead and forfeit this game. What an embarrassing season. We went to transfer portal and Dabo's a meanie who wants all the money for himself, says the team who can't beat anyone except for Cal. Nah, you know me. I love to talk some trash here. And to talk some trash and have some fun is Jesse from Plant the Spear. Jesse, thanks for coming on, my friend.
Hey, man, I'm with you. I wish we could come down with a little something or another and cancel this game because it's going to be, it's going to be ugly on Saturday. I'm not looking forward to this one.
You can see the happiness on his face, and that's why I'm going to bring you back in just a second to talk about this glorious time we're going to have together. But first, welcome to the channel. I'm Brian. I'm glad you're here. I hope that if you are in the states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, I hope you're doing all right. The hurricane was a week ago. So much more to do, so much to figure out. I hope you're safe. I hope you're doing okay. Know that I'm praying for you. I hope that you're doing all right. God blessed us here in my general area. It took care of us, and thank you for that, Lord. I'm just hoping everyone's doing all right. Hopefully, we'll give you something to take your mind off of it for the next few minutes. But if you're new here, I not only talk about Clemson, I talk about everybody. And I am an equal opportunity offender, even to myself. So if you like getting all worked up, talking college football, whether it's Clemson or not, this is your place to do it. Go ahead, help your cardiologist send his fourth kid off to an Ivy League school. Go ahead and do it. There we go, and get our blood pressure all jacked up. But I hope you will subscribe. It is free. The channel is growing like flipping wildfire, and that's because of y'all. You've been listening to me. I wish my kids would listen to me. Anyway, I'm going to bring Jesse on here to talk about Florida State. Jesse, I had you on back in June to talk about the Florida State Seminoles. There was a whole other view for Clemson and Florida State coming into this game. Yeah. Things haven't worked out. First off, how are you doing? Are you making it?
I'm good, man. I'm actually in the Charlotte area, so in South Carolina myself. So, yes, we were very lucky to be spared from the hurricane, and our prayers go out to everybody in Western North Carolina, Tennessee, and all the areas that are affected. But yeah, man, I'm good. Just enjoying, well, not enjoying the ride of football season so far. It's been pretty depressing. We actually started like a game day show on Friday that we air on Saturday, so we could talk about other college football teams because it's not been very fun to talk about Florida State. I mean, this has been a collapse of epic proportions that we really didn't see coming. And you talked about how we had talked about this game in the summer. I thought this was going to be a top 10 matchup. I thought this was going to be like a game day location where, there's not many big games this week. It's at Miami Cal this week. Who cares about that one? I thought this would have been the game of the week for us, for both teams. And man, this is really turned on its head. So unbelievable how this team has fallen apart. At this point, man, I really think Florida State's just got to kind of scrap the season and start looking forward to the future. But there's a lot of question marks right now, a lot of anger and angst in this fan base. And we're just really kind of searching for answers because it's gotten worse week over week over week. And so the only thing that we have to be positive about this week is, and I know we won't get to see his old team, thank goodness for us, but, a change at quarterback. So, the ukulele has been out of tune, frankly, in Tallahassee.
Oh, there's so much to talk about. If Dabo Swinney wins this ball game, a lot of people believes he will. The line's at 14.5 at this point, which you and a few other Florida State fans I've talked to is like, what? That's way too low. We believe Clemson's going to beat us by more than that. But if Dabo Swinney wins this game, he becomes the all-time winningest ACC coach, passing Bobby Bowden. How odd that would be, playing Florida State of all teams. You talk about DJ not playing this game. Ironically, it's just weird, man. All of this is weird. But let's talk about the team as a whole, because DJ is low-hanging fruit. I've talked about this. He's the quarterback. Of course, he's going to catch the criticism. But this has been a team effort. Like Post Malone's new song says, teamwork makes the dream work. It basically saying, hey, if the relationship fell apart, it just wasn't me, it was you too. This team has not been playing well. It goes past DJ. So kind of give me your thoughts on that there's not only just one person to hang this season on.
Yeah, really, I think when you look at Florida State, and I did a piece on this a while back where recently it's called Trouble in the Trenches. And I really dived into Florida State's, I think what the root cause of this struggle is, at least for our offense anyway, because our offense has been dreadful. Like if we had any semblance of offense, we probably wouldn't be 1-4, maybe, better, but not great. But our offensive line is pretty terrible. The quarterback play has been subpar. We got drop passes that are plaguing this team. I mean, Florida State this year, we are top 5 in pressures allowed. We are top 5 in drop pass rate. So like that's just it's hard for any quarterback really to succeed with those type of things around them. But really, I think even on the defense, like the defense is decent. They just get gassed late because the offense is just a complete failure. And to be frank, man, you have some loafing going on this team, which is really kind of reared its head in that SMU game. But I think if you go broad picture here and look at how this happened, I think a lot of it really is tied back to recruiting. And people make fun of Dabo for his style of recruiting and not going to the transfer portal and whatnot. But really, when you look at the elite teams in the country, the Ohio States, and I know they haven't won a lot, but the Ohio States who are consistently competitive, Georgia, Alabama, they're built primarily through high school recruiting. Clemson is the same way. Mike Norvell hit on the portal, right? It did good. It got us out of the ditch where we were at coming out of the Jimbo Fisher era into the Willie Taggart era. They really just needed to plug some holes in this roster. And they've done really good with some of the pieces that they got out of the portal. But the problem is they haven't recruited good enough at the high school level up underneath that. And so once you kind of ripped away that top layer of 10 NFL draft picks, you really didn't have enough pieces to kind of fill the void there. And so not only that, not only is the recruiting fell apart, but they've done really well in the portal in the past. This year they had a lot of misses. And I think a lot of that had to do with the snub and the Orange Bowl and the way the end of the season played out. There's a lot of things that have come out about players like doubling their asking price through NIL. And maybe we didn't, because of that, we couldn't pay in other places. And so you got a lot of guys who, had they have recruited better, probably wouldn't be on this roster right now. And so you're relying so heavily on those guys that it's now becoming a problem. And so really, I think at the end of this year, you're going to have to see the slate really wiped clean. I think we probably are going to need somewhere between 6 and 8 new assistant coaches. You're going to have some pieces that need to be cut out of this roster. And I mean, this is probably going to take a couple of years to recover from, because it's really going to have to start with recruiting. And I mean, thank goodness we are blessed enough to be in the state of Florida where there's a lot of talent. And you have an athletic department that is very focused on football. So like, I don't think we're going to go the way of like a Nebraska or Virginia Tech. But something has to change immediately. And I think it really all starts with recruiting, because, you can be, there's always the conversation about the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. And I still do think Mike Norvell is a good coach. I don't think there's anything wrong with him as a coach. I don't think he forgot how to coach. I mean, he was 23-4 over the last 2 years. But I think it's still the Jimmies and the Joes. But something is fundamentally broken inside this program, because I know that talent rankings and blue chip ratios can be deceiving, but Florida State has been more talented than every team they faced this season. And now Clemson will be, there will be the first time that we play a team that is technically blue chip ratio more talented than Florida State. So I'm interested to see how it goes. So it's really not even a talent thing. It's just something is completely off. There is a little bit of a belief in the fan base that the snub may have had some carryover broken effects of Mike Norvell, even as a coach. Even though I think he's still a good coach, like he just doesn't seem to have the fire and the passion that he had last year. And that was a really, really tough situation to go through. But then you see, I mean, this was the absolute worst way to come back from that, after the Orange Bowl, after the snub, to come back this season and start the way they did. We've already seen I think 3 decommitments. Our recruiting class is now down at 35th nationally. That is just, it's so much bad momentum that they have to overcome at the end of the season.
When I've talked about Clemson and the issues that they've had over the past few years, the low-hanging fruit has always been transfer portal, transfer portal, transfer portal. And I told everybody, listen to me. I'm not taking away from the transfer portal. I believe that the transfer portal is a supplementary recruiting tool.
Yeah.
You go in, you bridge some gaps. Like, I mean, for instance, Keon Coleman worked out great for you guys. Jordan Travis, a lot of people forgets that he came from Louisville. He was there a little longer. It was not instant success like Keon Coleman. But I always went back to coaching because coaches, unless they take another job somewhere or they're fired, they're there for an unlimited amount of time. And they're always there influencing their team. So you may fire someone, but 2 years down the road, you're still dealing with their poor practices. And so for me, I look at this as a Clemson fan who's had I've criticized Dabo. I've criticized Dabo.
Mm-hmm.
Other people knows that that's made me a bad guy at times in the Clemson community for criticizing him for the poor coaching hires. One thing I've taken up for him is the transfer portal is good and bad. You have to balance it. You really, really do have to balance it. It's really interesting to me that there was such high expectation for Florida State, considering what you've said. They lost a lot of talent, and then everybody expected them to go to the transfer portal, pull this team together, and boom, oh, they were supposed to be a contender again. And I just think that reality, that really doesn't make sense. I think that maybe that was a little more far-fetched expectation, and that's not a shot towards Florida State.
Yeah.
That is towards any team. Look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame has got some good players on the team. It's just whatever.
Yeah, no, I will say I think you're right. I think the transfer portal needs to be a supplementation of your roster and not the foundation of your roster. And I think that Florida State has made the transfer portal the foundation of their roster because I think they got too reliant on it, right? Like you look at a guy like Jamie Robinson. We were talking about this on our show the other day. Jamie Robinson was a two-time All-ACC safety, your leading tackler 2 years in a row, and they went out and got him from the time he visited campus to the time he enrolled at Florida State was, I think, 10 or 13 days. They put years into KJ Bolden, and then he flips to Georgia at the last minute. So I think they just really got complacent. They kind of got lazy knowing that they maybe expected the transfer portal to always be there. But that's not the way of success, right? And so, yeah, and I also think when you look at this year, one of the things that's made it so tough is that a lot of these expectations were put on themselves by this coaching staff. Mike Norvell was the one who came out and said, "This is the best, deepest offensive line I have had here during my time. This is the strongest, fastest team based on GPS data and things like that I've had at Florida State." So they set those expectations up on themselves. Really, we had the benefit of hindsight now, even though they didn't have it then. I predicted Florida State in the preseason to go about 10-2 with a floor of 8-4. I thought they could win every game on the schedule if they played up to their potential. But I still think they should have came at this year like, okay, look, we lost a lot. We got some young talent on this team. It's going to be a step back year. It's going to be a growth year for young guys. And, we might go 8-4, but we're going to kind of grow and step into the future, and then maybe go get like 5 or 6 pieces to accent this roster from the portal, some high-end pieces. But they went out and took guys that, frankly, we just didn't need, and they took too many pieces. And so now it's like now you're kind of stuck with that. And so I think going forward, they need to change their whole method of how they build this roster. I mean, the transfer portal is still fine. Like you said, it can still be there to supplement a roster. And frankly, we're going to need it again next year because we're losing a lot this year. So you're going to have to go find some pieces. But I think you have to put the onus on that high school recruiting. You have to put the onus on building these young guys years over years and developing them, and then just getting the pieces you need where you're deficient. And that's it. But you can't build your foundation from the portal, because one thing I will give Dabo that I think we're seeing the nasty side of this year is the culture problems, right? Like Dabo, they always say that that's the most cohesive team in the country. And some people can laugh at it all they want. But when you see a lot of guys that are playing for the name on the back of their jersey and not the guys that are playing for the name on their front of the jersey, like we're seeing at Tallahassee right now, it becomes a problem, because then you see loafing and half trying and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And so like it's become a problem this year.
Jesse from Plant the Spear, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to be talking a little more here, but I just want to let everybody know that you can go to their channel via the link below this video. Now, of course, finish this video and then go over there, subscribe to them, let them know that you saw him on this channel. Your partner couldn't make it today, could he?
Yeah, it's funny. Like we were sitting down to record our preview this morning, and he's like, the energy company just texted me that we're going to be without power till this afternoon. And as soon as we go to hit record, he freezes. And I'm like, I think I just lost him. And so I didn't have power last week because of the hurricane. He didn't have power this week. So it's like, man, this is what Florida State season is. It's affecting us too, I guess. It's rolling over into us, man. It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So everybody go over there and say hello to them. They do a great job. They do a great job and they're good people. They're very easy to work with. Not everyone is easy to work with. I can go ahead and tell you that. I'm just going to leave it
Yeah.
there. So I'm going to make an announcement to some of to everybody who's watching this currently, watching later on. First, I hope you hit the thumbs up because that's free. Hope you've subscribed because, well, that's free, and you can find out about the show. Also, we're part of the College Huddle. The College Huddle is just a conglomerate of podcasters and YouTubers who focuses on college football. So I don't think they have someone who focuses on Wake Forest because, let's be honest, who really focuses on Wake Forest? But yeah, we're on there. So go check out the College Huddle and let them know that you heard about the College Huddle from us. Next up, I will be doing a members only video. That's going to be coming up sometime soon. So not a subscriber, a members only. So if you're supporting on a monthly basis, you will only be able to attend this one. A lot of you are starting to join, and that means a lot to me, $3 or $5 per month. It's so cheap, you won't even notice it. I do appreciate everybody who will be looking forward to that one, and it's going to be a good time. Let's get back to Clemson and Florida State. We look at this game. We know DJ is not playing. It's very weird to me. In fact, as soon as I heard this, and I know this is very pessimistic of me, I went, he's faking. I mean, he just doesn't want to play us again. He knows they're coming after us. We're going to be coming after him. And then, of course, he broke his hand and so on. And I hope he gets better. If you could go back in time, would you have taken DJ?
No, I mean, no. And I will say this, like I actually put out a video before the season, which obviously didn't age very well, but I thought DJ could be a good enough solution for Florida State. Like I never thought that he was going to be a Heisman winner. I didn't think he was going to be some game-changing type of quarterback. You were looking at like a game manager type of guy, but I thought with a good run game, which is what we were told this team was going to have. We thought this would be a really excellent running team, good defense, maybe some electric receivers. I thought he could be good enough. But man, since he's been here, I mean, it's just been an abject failure. And I think there's a couple things that have been really disappointing. Is like, first off, I don't know that a lot of it's the offense is not helping him. Like he does not run RPO very well, and we just kept hammering RPO. And then I think like his deep ball it's not even been good. And that's really what we brought him in for, is that deep ball ability. And it's been pretty terrible. I mean, he has missed more touchdowns than he's thrown for this season. Also, the running ability has been a really big disappointment. I know he ran the ball over 100 times both seasons at Clemson. Didn't run it as much out there at Oregon State, but he can't move, man. And I don't know if it's an injury. He does wear a brace on his leg. He does wear that leg sleeve. But he's just so slow. And our offensive line, like I mentioned before, is pretty terrible. So you put that in front of him, a non-mobile quarterback, and I mean, teams just don't respect the pass. And so like there's times where it'll be 2nd and 15 and there's no deep safeties on the field because they just don't respect that passing ability. And so I do put a lot of the onus on DJ because his accuracy is terrible and his mobility is even worse. But it's not all on DJ either. I mean, a lot of this is our offensive line, our inability to run the ball. And so I think making a change needed to happen. I think it needed to happen before this. And I did see in the SMU game where it looked like he was trying to put his finger maybe back in place or something like that. But I mean, he was pretty rough before he injured his hand. So at this point, I really think with DJ, I probably, if I had hindsight, I wouldn't have taken him. Because man, I really think like if you put, you talk about Cam Ward, like if you put Cam Ward on this team, we're probably, I don't know that we're undefeated, but we're not in the position that we're at right now. But at the same time, I think when you look at DJ being a guy who's a 5th-year senior, this is probably it for him. I know there's been some rumor about he could possibly get a 6-year. Hopefully no disrespect to DJ. Hopefully it's not at Florida State. I think you kind of you needed to move on, right? Once the season became out of reach of anything, bowl eligibility, ACC championship, anything like that, it's time to move on because we do have 3 young quarterbacks that we like. And one of them you're going to see on Saturday, Brock Glenn. Now, the future of the program position at quarterback, we think is Luke Kromenhoek, who may or may not play on Saturday. He is a true freshman. But, man, I just think the way things went with DJ, it went so bad that I think the change needed to happen probably the Memphis week. And so now, poor Brock Glenn. I mean, his first start was in the ACC championship game against Louisville. His second start was against Georgia in the Orange Bowl without any skill position starters. Now his third start's against the top 15 Clemson team. So, like, that kid has been thrown to the wolves. But, yeah, I mean, the DJ thing was, I thought he would be better than what he did. But there's so many problems with this offense. But he's a big part of it.
I said that Brock Glenn should have a statue erected to him after this. And I feel terrible for the guy because Louisville, Georgia, now Clemson. Clemson's the best defense he's played so far this season. And that's crazy. And then you were talking about, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, Luke Kromanoff. I remember that guy. I would not put him out against Clemson.
No.
Because one thing that has been working for Clemson consistently, and they fail rarely, and when they do, it's because the offense has been farting around and got them tired and so on. It's been our defense. And so they're going to come after him. They're going to hit him. They're going to hit him hard. We saw that with Jordan Travis. I had gained so much respect for Jordan Travis last year because we just kept beating him and beating him. He kept getting up. He couldn't move his left arm good. And when we gave him just a little bit of time, guess what happened? He did what he did. So that guy was unbelievable. Do you think that you're going to see your coaching staff learn from the error of their ways of not focusing as much on high school recruiting? Maybe we could tweak the words there. I don't want to say not focusing on, but maybe go, hey, we got caught up in the transfer portal game. We paid attention to what's going on in Boulder, Colorado. Ohio State paid, $20 million for a lot of their team. Yeah. These other teams, we're not going to abandon the transfer portal, but we're looking at one another going, we're sick and tired of playing these games and it didn't pay off this year. Do you think there's maybe a different approach to recruiting because of this season?
I think you have to. I mean, really, there's no way they can't. And if they don't, then I think it's going to be the cause of all the coaching staff losing their job, including Mike Norvell. Now, I think Mike Norvell will be a few years down the road, but I think you have a couple of guys. There's a few guys on the staff, our running backs coach and our secondary coach, who have recruited well at the high school level, so they can stay. And really, our hope as Florida State fans is that we do have some freshmen and sophomores that are very talented. Now, of course, you can't lose them at the end of the season, which you're running a risk of now. So you're seeing some young guys get put in and get some playing time to keep them interested. But you have to go to a focus on high school recruiting. And I think they will. I think he's learned his lesson. But we'll know a lot of that when the end of the season happens and the firings happen on this coaching staff. Because, I mean, you have guys that, like our offensive line coach, I mean, we love him to death. He's a great guy and everything, but like none of his high school recruits, and he's been one of our best recruiters, none of his high school recruits have panned out yet at all, really. So like we'll see at the end of the year how many guys they fire and what that leads into to have them go out and get some recruiting. Now, of course, NIL is a big part of recruiting and stuff like that, but you can't be in the state of Florida and not recruit at a high level. And I've looked it up recently. I don't remember, like, just ballparking it off the top of my head. There was a couple of, I looked it up during the playoff era. I think even going back to 2013 when we won our national championship. Every recruiting class or every team that's won a national championship in the last decade had a recruiting class consistently that ranked around top 10-ish, top 15-ish in the years that led up to their national championship. And so far, the highest we've had is 12th one time. Every other year has been like outside of the top 20. And so you just see where, and not to mention, you can see a lot of the misses of guys that like a Travis Hunter, KJ Bolden, and some of the guys that we've missed on are doing well at their respective programs now. So I think Mike Norvell is still a smart guy. I think he got too focused on the portal. And, you know, I mean, again, like it worked great. We had a lot of guys that really paid off. And I don't suspect that they'll completely wash their hands of the portal. But I think they definitely know that you're going to have to go to the high school. You're going to have to pay what these kids are asking for. If you want to be competitive, you're going to have to. And you're going to have to develop them over years. But I mean, there's been a lot that's been exposed from this coaching staff and their inability to develop and their inability to recruit. And a lot of that was covered up by those guys last year. I mean, Jordan Travis covered up so much on this offensive line with just his ability to move and evade pressure, his understanding of the playbook, the receivers that they got. And you know, they still, like, I know there's the popular names like a Keon Coleman, but they also took like a Trey Benson who had 6 carries at Oregon for you, had 2 knee surgeries, and everybody said, do not take him. Turned out to be a 900-plus yard back 2 years in a row. Johnny Wilson was a guy who said he didn't even think they were going to get any offers in the portal. He turned out to be an NFL draft pick. So they have developed guys off the portal. But I think one of the other problems, too, is like you saw Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, saw kind of what Mike Norvell was doing and how it worked, and they went heavy in the portal. But now you're even seeing teams like Georgia going to the portal, Alabama going to the portal, Ohio State going to the portal. So some of those guys that maybe you were able to get early on when people weren't touching it are now harder to get, and they're more expensive to get. So I think now, man, you cannot be in the state of Florida and not have top 10 recruiting classes if you want to compete for a national championship. So it's got to go to the high school, and recruiting and development have to take key. But we'll see at the end of the year. I mean, it depends on how many guys they fire. I mean, I don't think these guys are bad coaches. I just think they're not good recruiters, or at least they haven't been held to the standard they need to in recruiting. And so really, I think too, you got such a stank on this program right now from, being stuck in the ACC and the lawsuits and the season that you're having and the transfer portal that like, you got to get a fresh look, whether you want to keep these guys or not. You have to get a fresh perspective on this program because the negative recruiting is going to kill you.
It sure is. Jesse from Plant the Spear, he is on here spitting some facts. I don't know why I look tough. Yeah. I don't know why I look tough like an old man over here, like I'm gazing out over some type of wheat field in Nebraska. I don't know. Anyway, I think that Florida State, over every team that I've been paying attention to and who is relevant in college football, I think this is the one that makes people in Clemson feel a little more emboldened to take up for Coach Swinney when he's like, I don't want to use the portal. It's also something that a lot of the major media, they're trying to sweep under the rug because they've been dogging Swinney. And listen, Swinney brings some stuff on himself. You know me. Yeah. I'm gonna tell it like it is there. I mean, there's some times I'm sitting there going, Swinney, why'd you say that? Why did you phrase it that way? You're asking for it. So you can put the kick me piece of paper on the back of your back real easy if you do this, and people are just going to kick away. But Florida State has been like the poster child of Swinney just pointing at FSU going, do you really want this? And then you look at Colorado. A lot of people still obsessed with Colorado, but it's just like watching the college football version of the Kardashians. Not that I'm watching the Kardashians, but it's like, you know what I'm saying? I think like in 5 years, we're all going to be looking at this going, that didn't turn out well. We thought it was going to turn out well. It had its moments. And then it's like a 30 for 30 waiting to happen. That a bunch of, I don't know, P. Diddy things are going to come out and everybody's like, oh God, that was sick. But
it's funny because when I was at ACC Media Days, Florida State won the ACC last year. The very first question, because when I got to stand there with while Dabo got interviewed, the very first thing he was asked, I want to say, was about the transfer portal and why he doesn't use it more heavily. And he says, look, man, it's not that we don't use it. It's just like we go out and we look at what we need and what we have, and do we like what we have on the roster more than what we see in the portal? And Wade Woodaz was a guy that he pointed to with that, was one of the first names that he brought up. He's like, look, we could have went out and got a linebacker, but I like Wade Woodaz. I like what we got in this guy. And so I think it's shown that, like, maybe like the rabbit and the tortoise story or whatever, right? Like Dabo's kind of the tortoise, man. You keep sticking to your process. There's times that you're going to lose some things. I mean, I think people also have to understand too, where people get jealous looking at like, okay, maybe Clemson had a little bit of a down year or two where they could have taken some transfers to help supplement that roster. You also had coaching turnover at that point. You had quarterback change. You had a bad quarterback there with DJ that kind of sparked some of that stuff too. So it's like, man, Clemson is recruited at such a high level that, like, if you feel better about what you got and they're a system fit, and, once you get those guys coming in, like, I can't confirm or deny this, but there has been some reports from credible sources that there is a little bit of angst in the locker room over how money's been distributed, playing time and things like that with transfers. You got guys who commit to this program and then they get recruited over with transfers to come in and they don't get on the field. You can see where it causes culture issues. And yes, it did work the last 2 years. You hit on those. That was great. but you didn't recruit well enough up underneath it. So now, I said the other day, it was like the Three Little Pigs or whatever. You bringing out all the comparisons and stories here. But it's like when you build your house of straw, in a sense, from the transfer portal, and you don't have that recruiting brick foundation, when it collapses, it's going to be an epic collapse. And that's what we're seeing this year. You just have not recruited well enough at the high school level that if you miss at the transfer portal and you don't have guys to replace them with that you've recruited and developed, you're going to see a 1-4 start from a team like Florida State that went 13-1 last year.
And also, all the years of College Game Day on those Saturday mornings where they talked about, oh, if we'll just allow these players to be paid, this is going to help some of the poorest players. Well, that hasn't worked out.
No.
The poor players are now even more poor because the guy who is sitting a few seats down from them, who has $1 million, $500,000 NIL deal, he's now sitting beside them and he's doing good. You and your family still poor. Your little brother still has nothing to eat. Your parents still can't come see you play football. So I have a lot of problems with NIL and how it was pitched to us. It was a lie. In fact, I'm almost to the point, what politician was behind this? Because it was that bad. But
yeah.
Do you see any way Florida State wins this ball game?
Well, no, but I mean, I think when I look at this game, right, I mean, unless Jesus himself comes down and plays quarterback for us, I don't know that we have I don't know that we have a chance here. But for me, I am interested in this game, right? I told most of the people on our show to tape an index card over the score part and watch the game within the game, because we have Clemson this week, and I think you just got to wear this one the way it is. Then you have a bye week, then you have Duke after that. And so I think you really just want to see the response from this team. You want to see how the young quarterback does, and then maybe that Duke game is a better way to judge him after a bye week of being able to prepare. But when I look at this game, for me, I still wonder, and we were talking about this before we jumped on, and this is no disrespect to Clemson or the fans or the team. I still wonder where Clemson is as a team, right? It's interesting to see, because you look at the one team that they played that was really good, and that was Georgia, and you see how that game went. Now, Georgia's went on to have that close game against Kentucky, who did beat Ole Miss. And Lord knows transitive properties are crazy in college football. It's hard to make it make sense. Yeah. But then they were down 30-7 against Alabama at one point. But then they go on, they beat App State. App State is not the team that they thought they were, 2-2. They got only one FBS win. NC State is probably one of the only teams in the country that's worse than Florida State. I mean, they've been blown out by every good team and struggled against every bad team that they played. And then Stanford. Stanford was a team that had that game 20-7 in the third quarter with 2 minutes left, ran for over 200 yards. So it's like, who is Clemson? Is Clemson a team that just beats up on bad teams, or are they the team that played against Georgia? Well, unfortunately for Florida State, we're a bad team too. So we're probably going to get beat up in this game as well. The only hope that I have is with the change at quarterback, because DJ's lack of mobility, as I talked about earlier, really hamstrung this offense. And at least with the young guy, he is a mobile guy. Now, he may not be great, but he's mobile and he has moxie. He will stand in there and he will deliver it and take a shot to do so. I think his mobility can help out this offensive line. I think that just having that leadership, because the one big knock that I've had on DJ is that he's just been a statue, man. He doesn't look like a vocal leader in any way. There's no emotion from him, either good or bad. And I think you get that from Brock Glenn. So I think just the spark of something different, a renewed belief in the system, a guy who can help by running the ball. Defenses actually have to respect the quarterback to run the ball now, which they did not do for DJ. I think that is going to be the key, because for Florida State to stay in this game, their defense has, like you were talking about with Clemson, their defense sometimes gets worn down late in games because of the offense kind of sputtering out. That's what happens with us. Late in the game, our defense, they might play good, but then they get worn down. So you have to move the chains. And I don't even know if we're going to get touchdowns, but let's just get first downs so we can keep the defense rested in this game. That's going to be pretty much your only chance. You're going to have to eliminate almost all the mistakes, which they have not done. But I think this is more of a game. Can you keep it close versus really actually coming out and winning here? You're going to have to run the ball, but we've been terrible at running the ball. It's really hard for me to see a path to this. I've said before, I think there's two ways I see this game, right? And I think the two biggest things here when I talk about strength of schedule is when you look at the the Florida State hasn't played anybody good yet, like a Georgia, but they really haven't played anybody bad yet. And so Clemson has kind of had the opposite. They played that one good team, but then when you look at the offense, and I won't bore you with the numbers, but when you look at the offense and the defensive rankings that they played, Florida State's kind of been like upper 50s, top 50 in the country. And outside of Georgia, Clemson, most of the teams they face have been really bad on offense and defense. So like maybe you're a better team than, like, if Florida State plays up to its potential, it can be a better team than NC State, than App State, than Stanford. But you got a redshirt freshman making his first start of the year who's had 2 drives all season. He hasn't even been able to play, and because we haven't played FCS team, so he hasn't played in garbage time. We saw some quit. We got blown out by SMU last week. So it's kind of like, man, it's hard to see a path in this one. I could see where maybe Florida State keeps it close early and then Clemson runs away with it late. But man, I don't see much. I mean, my score prediction was 45-17 Clemson. So I think it's going to be bad. I think they'll keep it close early, but I mean, my biggest concern in this game is blocking that front seven, because our O-line is so bad. If we can't run the ball and they pressure the redshirt freshman quarterback into some mistakes, and you see those mistakes compile, kind of like you saw with the NC State game, I think it's going to just snowball really, really fast, and we're going to be in trouble quick.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that you pointed out there is that Clemson played one really good team. They got hammered. Afterwards, they play some really bad teams. Now, my motto is, if you play a bad team, beat a bad team bad. And that lets you know that, hey, maybe we're getting our feet under us. I'm glad to see the offensive explosion, but I've told Clemson fans ad nauseum, guys, we have a lot to prove, because the last time we played someone with a pulse 5 weeks ago, something like that, we got the color beat out of our jerseys. So we need this improvement. We want to see this improvement, but we need to be realistic and let the season play out. And then whoever we play, whatever game, whatever title of the game may be, if they're a good football team, how do we respond then? So that's that. Well, Florida State is a bad football team right now who has nothing to lose. And my goal for Clemson is that they stay focused. Don't start reading your own press. Don't pay attention to Dan Mullen on the Mullen and Over segment saying, oh, Clemson's back. Everybody else saying Clemson is back. Against who?
Yeah.
The worst App State team I've seen in years. The worst NC State team I've seen in years. Again, folks, against Clemson fans, I am happy that Clemson is winning these games. We're seeing that offensive production, but we have a lot to prove. And quite frankly, that 45-17 score, Clemson needs that to be the score for them to do that to Florida State, for you to even have the idea that, yes, they are getting better. They're beating a bad team bad. And so anyway, I totally agree with your assessment there. I know some Clemson fans are going to be like, he came on here and disparaged our team and they suck and everything. Yeah. Hey, here's the thing. He's right. And so, FSU learning a lot of lessons via the transfer portal, via who's coaching. You drop one game by 8, drop one game by 3, and then the other two totally different dominating stories. BC could have scored another touchdown there. I think it's an interesting time for not only Tallahassee but college football, watching what's going on down there. So, man, it's been great to have you on the channel. I know I've already talked about it, but tell me where I can find Jesse and Plant the Spear.
Yeah, and no, that is no disrespect to Clemson. I mean, obviously, no. You guys are looking to hit your stride, and you know what they say. I mean, good teams win, great teams cover, and you're covering. So, like, that's all that matters. You're beating bad teams like you should. Right now, we aren't beating anybody, so like it's bad.
Yeah,
we're a cupcake at this point. So get fat on us this weekend, enjoy it. But yeah, and I will also say, like, man, hey, look, I'm pulling for you guys, because right now you're probably the only one in the ACC, not in this game, obviously, but you're probably the only one in the ACC that can stop Miami, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So go Clemson, go to Charlotte, and go handle your business there. So I'll be pulling for you guys in that one. But yeah, Plant the Spear. Like I said, we talk about Florida State, as painful as it may be. We do have a website, plantthespear.com, where we have written articles. All of our videos, podcast stuff is there. Of course, we're on YouTube as well. Like I said, we actually did start a show on Friday that we air every Saturday. That's like Plant the Spear Game Day, where we kind of mock game day as a whole there from ESPN that we talk about all the college football. We talk about, all the big games of the week and hot topics of college football, because not a whole lot of fun talking about this team. So if you guys want to check that out, it is more than just Florida State. So I think you guys will enjoy that if you're a college football fan in general. So, man, I really appreciate you having me on. I always enjoy this. Probably won't enjoy the game so much on Saturday, but it is what it is, man. The dark days are back.
I civilly say this. I hope you don't enjoy the game this coming Saturday.
It's going to be rough. I was supposed to be there, but I was like, man, that's a 7-hour drive, and I got a lot of storm cleanup to do. So I think I picked running a chainsaw for 6 hours more than I did going to this game because it was less painful.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Let me tell you the thoughts here. 904 Hurricane, a Miami Hurricane fan, says this. This is the first Florida State guy I've seen who has acknowledged this fact. So you're just spitting facts over here. Well, Jesse, thanks for coming on the show. Everybody go check them out. Let him know that you saw him on this show. That's always weird for me to say. I just feel like I don't know. Also, if you haven't subscribed, I hope you will subscribe. It is free. The channel's blowing up. I was asking for 4,000 subscribers a couple of weeks ago. Now I'm over 5,100 going to 52. So
awesome.
Thank y'all for doing that. I will have that members only. You don't have to wear a members only jacket. I know you want to, but you don't have to. If you have one, you're free to do so. A members only video where if you're either $3 or $5 per month, you'll be able to get on this video. I'll let you know the date and time on that. Do stop by and at least drop me a comment in here and say hello. Hopefully you're only saying nice things, but I'm glad you're all here. I hope you're all safe. Take care of yourself. Jesse, again, thanks for coming on the show. Folks, tomorrow is game day. Hopefully win-win. We should. If we don't, we've got big problems. Anyway, go Tigers.